Hi, thanks for taking a look at our tour of a comprehensive landlord verification report from checkyourlandlord.com. What we're going to do here is quickly walk you through exactly what you will get on a Check Your Landlord verification report that you might be running on a property that you are interested in renting, and why each piece of information is important and what we should be considering in that rental decision. So you'll see here that right up front, we are going to identify the risk factors for you, give an overall risk profile assessment. So that is Check Your Landlord's judgment of how risky this property might be as a renter. In this particular case, we've found a number of issues noted by the red X's and a potential issue noted by the yellow exclamation point icon. And this leads us to deem this property a high risk, probably not a property that you would want to rent. We'll go through, as we go through the report, exactly what these risk factors are and why they're important. You'll see here that the information that was provided to us on this property, the address, and the landlord's name. Landlord's name is not required. However, if you do provide us with the landlord's name, that gives us the ability to verify that piece of information. So next piece here is the property data. We're going to tell you exactly who the owners are. If you've provided us with the landlord's name, we will verify that. So in this case, we find out the owner is Susan L. Anderson. She owns it with Stephen J. Anderson. Landlord name was Susan L. Anderson. It earns a green check mark. Everything looks fine. We'll tell you when the house was last sold, what the price was, just for your information. Maybe you're thinking about renting for a while and then buying the house. It could be good information for you to know. Now we'll come into one of the most important pieces, and we'll tell you what liens there are against this property. Liens are mortgages or loans that are made with the property as collateral for the bank. So the first lien, the first mortgage, was from Bank of America, $278,000 that was given on the date of sale. So this was money that they bought the property with. We can see here that there is what's called a lis pendens. Now in some states it'll be called a lis pendens, in others it'll be called a notice of default. Essentially it's the same thing. It is telling you that they are behind in their mortgage payments, and this bank has filed this notice to say, we may be coming to foreclose on this house. Now, the time frames on that depend on the state, on the bank, on a number of factors. But the first thing that they do is they file this notice of default, or lis pendens. This tells you that the bank has filed this. We never recommend that a property be rented that has a notice of default against it. That earns a red X, and it is a high risk factor. We'll see here there's a second lien on the property, J.P. Morgan Chase, for $60,000. That was taken out a few years after they bought the house, probably a home equity line of credit. And there aren't any notices of default against this. There are no problems with this second lien. In fact, they may not even owe any money on this lien. They may simply have a line of credit that they haven't drawn on. Next, we'll look at the property taxes. Now, not every jurisdiction provides this information to the public, and we will provide it to you in any case where we are able to find it. And what we've found here is that they are delinquent on their property taxes as of 2010. That again earns a red X because delinquent property taxes can lead to the foreclosure of a property. And that is a problem for you as a renter. Even in cases where the law may allow you to stay in that property for a certain length of time, you may have been expecting to stay in that property for years. You're going to incur additional moving costs, and certainly you're going to incur some headaches and hassles if the ownership changes as the result of a foreclosure. So we just want to avoid those situations. There are plenty of rental properties out there. Why rent a bad one? So a few other property items. If there are other liens, this might be a vendor lien, a homeowners association lien, any other case where the property is collateral for some type of credit, we will look for that. We'll let you know the square footage, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, if that information is available. And if there's anything else we feel that you should know, we will put it in this additional notes section. Next, we're going to look into the background of the landlord. So we will look at Susan Anderson. We will let you know if there are any other names that she has gone by in the past. Here it's Susan Lowell, probably just a maiden name, nothing to be concerned about. We'll let you know of associated business names. So here, Anderson Properties. So Mrs. Anderson may own a few properties, have those properties run through this company in some way for management. She may ask you to make the check out to Anderson Properties, and that may be fine. We just want to provide this information for you. Now here's a piece that we feel is very important, and we don't believe that this is information that any other source provides for you. We will look at other properties owned by the same person. What we found here is that Mrs. Anderson owns 2 other properties. Now, why is this important? Well, one of these properties has a notice of default filed against it. We don't consider that a high risk. It's not something that necessarily affects our property, but what it tells us is that she potentially is in some financial difficulty. That earns a potential risk factor, yellow exclamation point. What's the problem with that? If the landlord has financial trouble, well, what happens when your water heater breaks at 3 in the morning and the landlord is responsible for replacing that, but they don't have the $1,000 that it's going to cost to do that? Well, now you're put in a position of either having to break your lease because the landlord isn't providing the services that they need to, and of course that's going to cost you money in moving. You're going to have to find a new place. Or you may have to replace that water heater yourself and then work on deducting that from your rent at some other point. You may not have the money at that point to do that, and it's going to be a problem that you'll have to deal with. We want to avoid any potential problems. So this just tells us that this landlord may have some financial difficulties, and they may end up defaulting on our rental property next. Bankruptcy history, same thing. We want to know if they've got financial problems. Civil court filings and judgments. The reason we look here, in this case there are no problems, but perhaps a former tenant has sued and won a judgment against this landlord for one reason or another. Well, it would be nice to know that, because if there's a pattern like that, it may tell us we don't want to become involved with this landlord. Criminal filings, here there's a speeding ticket. Not a problem as far as being a renter from this landlord. But what if a violent crime showed up? This landlord is going to have a key to your home. Would you want someone with a violent criminal past or drug arrests, things of that sort, to have a key to your house? Probably not. So we will note anything like that for you. Any other judgments that we find, other liens that we find here, there were no issues. And you'll see at the bottom we are going to provide a glossary of these risk factors. We've talked about each piece as we went through the list, the report here, and those will again be reflected right up here in the front of the report. You can see here this report came back, high risk level. You would probably not want to rent this property. If you have any questions either before or after you receive your report, just email us, support@checkyourlandlord.com. You can also give us a call, 855-CHECK11. We're happy to provide you with the explanations of what's on your report and help you out so that you can make the best rental decision possible. Thanks for taking a look, and we hope that in the future you will use checkyourlandlord.com anytime you're considering renting a property.